Hello and welcome to this video, IRS Offers and Compromise. There are three specific conditions that are generally used to qualify a taxpayer the offer and compromise process, and I'm going to talk about one of them in some detail, and I'm going to mention the other two so you'll know something about them. The first condition is called doubt as to liability. In other words, you would be saying to the IRS that you doubt that you actually owe that money. And the reason I'm not going to get into that here is because it's rarely ever used. There are other ways to deal with it besides the offer and compromise process. You would amend the return and file a 1040-X or file a corrected return or something like that. And if there's doubt as to liability, the taxes have already been assessed and there's a legal presumption that they're correct. That presumption is hard to overcome. So we don't use doubt as to liability very often. Doubt as to collectability means that there's doubt that you could ever pay the debt in full. And there is one other method that we do use sometimes. It's called effective tax administration. And I'll just give it a brief example of that. You may actually be able to pay all the tax, but they still will give you an offer in compromise because, for example, you have a medical condition or a disability. So now I just want to explain in some more detail what doubt as collectability, how that works, because it is the most frequently used basis for an offer in compromise, and the process is somewhat like a bankruptcy proceeding. For example, it's based on your income, and if based on your income it is doubtful you could ever pay the amount in full, then you may qualify. Now, there are other things that they look at. Of course, they look at your assets, and if you have any equity in your assets, they're going to add that to your offer. So they're looking at your income going forward, and they're placing a value on that they would expect to be able to collect. They're looking at assets you've got, and particularly equity in your assets. And there's some other things. For example, if you are expecting an inheritance from Aunt Jane, which that inheritance could be used toward taxes. If they know about that, they're going to add that to your offer. Anything that the IRS becomes aware of that's pending good fortune, then you need to be aware that they would be interested, if there's any money coming out of there, they would be interested in adding that to your offer. Generally, doubt is found for most people. Doubt as to collectability is found where the monthly income that's left over after paying the allowable expenses is less than the amount of money that would take to pay that off within the statute collection period, which is generally 10 years. So if you can't pay it off in full within the statute, then the IRS would be interested in a lot of cases in granting an offer in compromise. So a lot of documentation is required. The forms have to be prepared. There's a new form now for the collection information statement. It's pretty much like the old one, but it does do help you understand the calculation better, I think, and it ties into the Form 6, the other forms better, and the documentation that you have to send in is rather extensive. Bank statements and rental agreements, loan agreements. Now, I just want to process works like this. The first step is just getting into the process. So you put all that paperwork together and send that. And when you send that in, the first place it goes is to the desk of someone who just goes through the paperwork and makes sure, for example, that it's all there. Then they're going to make sure that all your bank statement, all your tax returns have been filed. They're going to make sure all the bank statements that they require are in there, and all the other documents that they require are in there, and that all the forms are filled out. So once they determine that everything's there and you're not in bankruptcy, you filed all your tax, once all that's done, it takes about, let's say, 10 days. Then they send you a letter and say, now your offer has been approved for processing. From that point, it takes about 6 months, 5 to 6 months from that point for them to get for your return or your offer and compromise package to actually get to someone's desk to work. And we call those people offer specialists. And that's the person that we negotiate with at the IRS about the issue, your particular issues, and whether or not they're going to accept your offer. And so, you advocate the best you can for yourself. That's what I do. I advocate for people in that situation and prepare the documents and the offer specialist, based on the information in your package and the arguments that have been made, they make a determination about how much the offer amount should be, how much they think it should be. Sometimes they accept what you offer, sometimes they will counter offer, and a lot of times the negotiations resolve themselves right at that. We'll call that step 2. So you make your deal, make your agreement with the offer specialist. Now sometimes the offer specialist does not approve the offer, and then after that you have a period of time, generally about 30 days, to file an appeal, and that process can take up to 3 months. The appeals officer will hear only the specific issues that the offer specialist raised. So those arguments would be addressed to those issues only. They don't open up every other aspect of the case and consider new information. On May 21st, the IRS announced an expansion of what they call the Fresh Start Initiative, to offering more flexible terms to its offering compromise program, and that has helped a lot of people get into this process. And it's also reduced the amounts of the offers. That's been probably the biggest part of it that's helped is the way they do the calculation, the multiplier that they were using. They made it a lot smaller. So when you using a smaller multiplier, you're ending up with a lot smaller offer that you have to pay. So and it is a little bit easier to do, I think. So for a lot of people. You can find details about this new initiative at ralphsayers.com, RALPHSAYERS.com, and you can find detailed information about the offering compromise process at taxules.com, TAXULESS.com, and you can call Ralph, that's me, at 941-723-9106.